questions. Yeah, right here.
Do you know what the name of book 5 will be?
Do I know the name of book 5? Book 5 will be called Keys to the Demon Prison. Yep, so we've settled on that. Settled on it enough that it's in the back of book 4. So that's pretty official now. Girl in the Gray, what's your question?
What made you start writing Fablehaven?
I used to live in Connecticut. My house was surrounded by trees. Sometimes I would daydream, what if there was weird creatures lurking out there in the woods, or monsters or whatever, right? And then so I tried to create an excuse for magical creatures to exist in our world. The excuse I came up with was, what if there were secret wildlife parks full of these magical creatures hidden among us? That idea became like a playground in my brain and grew into the Fablehaven series. There's a lot of different types of characters in Fablehaven, right? You've got your magical creatures and you've got your humans. Those are the two big categories of characters. The magical creatures in my books mostly come from different myths and legends and traditions, right? Like some come from Greek mythology, like your centaurs, those half-horse, half-man guys, your satyrs, those guys with the goat legs, your naiads, which are like freshwater mermaids. Some of them come from Germanic or Scandinavian mythology, like dragons or trolls or ogres or fairies. Some of them even come from Native American folklore, like the Kachinas in Book 3, which are like a Hopi tradition. Or sometimes you'll even see Jewish folklore, like the golem in Fablehaven. That's from Jewish folk tales, a creature of earth and stone. So all those creatures are coming from different myths and legends, but then my job as the author is to put my own spin on them, just give them personalities, create my own rules for how they'll behave and interact in my stories, right? One of my favorite parts about writing the Fablehaven books is bringing those characters to life. Trying to make those magical creatures feel interesting and new and real, you know, in a way. The other kind of characters are those human characters, Kendra and Seth, and for my human characters, I'm taking attributes from people that I know. Like my brother Bryson's a bonehead in some of the ways that Seth is a bonehead. And when I say a bonehead, I mean he's kind of obstinate and stubborn, and sometimes won't listen to good advice, and Seth has some of those attributes if you've read the books, right? So I've got a brother that's got a little bit of Seth. Plus my brother used to run around in a camouflage shirt with a survival kit made out of a granola bar box. Yeah, right here. How to come up with Kendra? Kendra is a little bit like my sister, but not exactly like my sister. I wanted one character who was a little bit reckless and a little bit bold, and I made that Seth. One character who was a little bit kind of maybe calmer and more obedient, but in some ways smarter, and that person was Kendra. And over the course of the series, these two characters, one of them is learning to sometimes be a little less reckless, while the other one's learning that sometimes she needs to take risks every now and then. Oh yeah, and the relationship between Seth and Kendra is a lot like the relationship I had with my own brothers and sisters growing up, where we love each other, but we still argue and fight and bicker and make fun of each other. But at the end of the day, if it's an emergency, we take care of each other because we care about each other. It's that kind of relationship. Yeah, the end of Fablehaven is in sight. I've got quite a few plans. There's a 3-book series that I will write like the year after Fablehaven ends. The 3-book series will start a trilogy. It's all planned out, all mapped out. It's even kind of unofficially contracted already. And so that'll be the next series that I write. There's also my very first picture book is going to come out at the end of the summer. That picture book is called Pingo, and it's about a kid whose imaginary friend becomes his imaginary enemy when he tries to stop believing in him. And even though that sounds a little psychotic, it's actually kind of sweet, and it's about imagination and friendship. I wrote it that way, kind of took the funny road instead of the creepy road. But the artist is Brandon Dorman. He's the artist that did all of my Fablehaven covers and interiors and Candy Shop War cover. And so the art's beautiful. I've already seen the book. So that's something I have in the future, this Pingo book, my first picture book. I've got little kids, so I wanted to write a picture book. And then I will write a sequel to Candy Shop War. That will probably be about 3 years away. It's still a little ways away. It took me a long time to think of an idea that I felt like was worth writing. But once I came up with it, I'm getting excited about it. So that'll be about 3 years away. Books that have inspired me, right? Whenever I read a book that takes me on a great ride, that's a big part. Like, right, that creates this thing inside of me that wants to do likewise, wants to create something cool. A couple books that did that for me. When I was a kid, the Narnia books were the very first books that made me love reading. Those are the books where I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is like better than a lot of movies. This is really fun, you know? Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card is a pretty cool sci-fi book. It's a little bit kick butt, so if you're sort of sensitive, you might want to wait a little while before you read it. But yeah, if you want kind of a kick butt sci-fi book, Ender's Game sort of gets that done. Those are a couple that I think are really cool. Yeah, right here, the Ranger with the U on the shirt.
How did you think of the titles?
how do I think of the titles of the books? Sometimes, like for Candy Shop War, almost the first thing I had was the title of that book. I was partly like, I want to write a book called The Candy Shop War. What would that be about? You know what I mean? Like that's seriously kind of what happened. You're like, okay, magical candy and magicians, and okay, I'm getting there. With Fablehaven, I had written the whole book before the preserve in Fablehaven was not called Fablehaven when I first wrote the book. I just didn't even have a name. It was just like the magical preserve place or something, which would have been a terrible name for a book. Magical preserve place or something, right? And so after I was done with the book, my publisher and I, we brainstormed for a long time, made up lots of names, lots of things. I was the one who came up with Fablehaven, so I get the credit. But my publisher definitely helped with combing through a bunch of ideas until we found Fablehaven. And once we found Fablehaven, we're like, okay, that's the name of the place, it's the name of the book, it's the name of the series. We just named everything Fablehaven. And then Fablehaven, all the other Fablehavens have a subtitle. For most of those, usually the subtitles I have them before I've written them. And I have come up with all the titles so far. I got the most help on Grip of the Shadow Plague from my publisher for a specific title. Most of them I just kind of dream up.
And do you have children?
Do I have children?
How old are they, and have they read your book?
And what's the story? Okay, I'm 34 years old.
I know that.
Oh, you already knew that. You can just eyeball it, huh? No, yeah, it's in the book.
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, it's about 34, about 225, right? I have 3 kids. I have a 5-year-old daughter named Sadie, 3-year-old son named Chase, 1-year-old daughter named Rosalind, who goes by Rose. And yes, they actually with Grandma, Sadie has read the first 2 Fablehavens because Sadie's fearless and kind of a bright little kid. So yeah, I guess however she sat there with Grandma and read the first 2 books aloud. And I'll read with her. I'll read chapter books with her at night, so she's kind of in the habit of reading with people. But it's not like 4 or 5-year-olds. You know what I mean? Like that's probably not the target audience. But that's partly why Pingo happened, was I wanted a book that was for my little guys. The only downside to me being on the road and touring is I'm away from those kids a little more than I'd like. You know what I mean? Like, I really do like to get out and go to schools and get in front of people and talk about writing. I just love to geek out about the whole process. But that's the only downside, is I'm away from home a little more than I'd like. But it has compensations. When I'm in writer mode, kind of my hermit mode, then I'm there all the time. They're probably sick of Dad, always lurking around the house and spacing out and daydreaming. But I have a lot of fun with my kids. I miss them a bunch. What other authors am I good friends with? Well, there's an author named Shannon Hale. You guys know who that is? That's like, she wrote like Princess Academy or Rapunzel's Revenge. Maybe not your kind of thing. but she's a very good writer though, and she's a friend of mine up in Utah. I'm doing an event tomorrow with a very little known author, like not a very famous author named Stephanie Meyer. Yeah, just no one's hardly ever heard of the poor girl. Poor girl. It's not like she's selling 300,000 books a week. And I'm not exaggerating. Yes. Yeah, do I have rivalries with like Percy Jackson? Dude, that Rick Riordan guy, man, yeah, he is trouble, pure trouble. Riordan, is that how you say it? I wouldn't even know. I wouldn't even know. That's okay. That happens. That happens. You know what? I really feel no competition with other fantasy writers. I feel like everybody that writes a cool fantasy, that's just growing the readership of people who are having fun with these kind of crazy books. And so, yeah, Percy Jackson, high five. And high five to all those guys that are writing cool fantasies. I guess if you're writing a really boring, terrible book, I don't need to worry about you either, because they're probably not competition. So, if you're writing cool ones, I'm glad you're writing cool ones. If you're writing dumb ones, bless your heart, keep on doing that too. See where it takes you. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for showing up.